Hello, what is up, everybody? Happy Monday. It's good to see you. Thanks for swinging by the channel. I hope you are having a great day. Guys, we're going to go ahead and be jumping into John chapter 13, verses 31 to 38. And here, one of the big important statements Jesus makes is, this is how people are going to know that we're his disciples, that we love one another. And so that's the idea. That's the concept behind it. What is up, Woody? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Hope you are doing well. So let's go ahead and read these verses, get an understanding of them, and we'll go ahead and jump in and see how we want to prepare our message. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and glorify him at once. Little children, yet a little while I am with you. You will seek me, and just as I said to the Jews, so now I also say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus answered him, "Where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow afterward." Peter said to him, "Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." Jesus answered, "Will you lay down your life for me? Truly, truly, I say to you, the rooster will not crow till you have denied me 3 times. So, very important passage. Of course, the first thing we note is the love one another aspect. Also, the idea that where I'm going, you cannot come is very key. And I believe at a later point, or maybe an earlier one, I can't remember, he says, you will come afterwards, right? Whoa, whoa, whoa. I didn't get the alert. Holy smokes. Cal Magic, let's go. Tier 3, 45 months. Come on. Wow, almost 4 times circling the sun. That's incredible. I hope you're doing well, Cal Magic. Thanks for swinging by. How are you? How are you? Oh, you know what happened is I muted the alerts because we were getting the spam bots last Monday. Let's go ahead and play that.
Your life is not in your hands. Your life is in the hands of God.
Cal Magic Guy just resubbed for 45 months.
That's what we're looking
Wow. Almost 4 times circling the sun.
Incredible. Incredible. Thank you so much, Cal Magic. Much love to you. So much support over the years. Appreciate you immensely. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's good to see you. And then, of course, the last part is the prediction about Peter's betrayal, which is very interesting, especially since we just talked about Judas's betrayal. So, CF Judas, question mark. So there's already 3 exegetical things that are jumping out to me. And of course, there's more here, the glorified peace and all of that as well. But yeah, not sure what we want to focus in on yet. Guys, I got some black tea with me. This is just a Yunnan province black tea. I believe on Adagio Teas, it's called Yunnan Gold. And it's pretty good. I have too much Yunnan tea because I bought a bunch of it all at once. And I bought big bags of it thinking it was going to taste dramatically different. You know, the Yunnan Gold versus the Yunnan Jig, etc. They taste very, very similar. And black tea's like not my favorite anyway. I will say the Yunnan teas go great with honey if you're trying to do like a honey kind of thing. But overall, I have lots of this. I've been drinking it Gong Fu style all day. It's good. It's just not my first choice. You know, typically I'm reaching for green teas or raw pu'ers, things like that. But it's still very good. Very nice. And then I've got a backup. I've got a tangerine LaCroix here with ice. So we are locked in, guys. We are locked in. Not going to be going thirsty tonight. Okay, let's read it again. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "The Son of Man is glorified, and God is glorified in him." I have a feeling the being glorified piece goes together with the where I am going, you cannot come. Those feel related to me. Woody says, "I watched your sermon that touched on foot washing. I thought the way you handled the Free Will Baptist view of it on being an ordinance was very classy. Appreciate that." Oh, my pleasure, Woody. Yeah, and thank you guys for the feedback. And obviously, I included that information because of you guys sharing with me that background and that perspective. Yeah, so thanks for sharing. I think that was insightful for a lot of people in my congregation. Awesome. Yeah, good to see you again. So this God is glorified piece, I feel like it almost has to go with the where I am going, you cannot come type of thing, because it follows right here. Just as I said to the Jews, just a very interesting passage. There's all sorts of threads you could pick up. Lord, where are you going? You will follow afterward. I don't like treating topics like this because I feel like they almost always get systematic theologically constrained. And what I mean by that is we aren't open as Christians often to really speculating on what Jesus means when he says, "Where I'm going, you cannot come." And then later he says, "But you will follow afterward," right? I think we immediately try to fit that into our systematic theological box and say, oh, what could he be talking about? Could he be talking about heaven, et cetera? And then that just constrains our options and our thoughts behind what he's speaking about. But I like the first iteration to be a little more open, and not constrained by our systematic theology. But it's really hard to do within any dogmatic system, really. Cal Magic Peter cut the Roman's ear, walked on water, was present when Jesus told him where he was going to plant his church, arrested and hauled off to Rome, wrote 2 fantastic epistles, all-star apostle. I love that, Cal Magic. That's fantastic. And yes, it's true. It's true. Peter was an all-star in many ways, right? He was positively an all-star in all of the crazy things he did and participated in. And then, of course, he has some of the biggest flubs of any of the apostles. And I think it shows something very powerful about leaving it all out on the field, as it were, right? Not holding anything back type of thing. Peter really did that. So I think that's kind of cool. Love that tea. Okay, we've already got some great ideas. I mean, these are just good verses, really good verses here. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do here. Part of me wants to run the passage guide. A big part of me. Let's just go passage guide, and then maybe we'll get creative in the commentaries we reference. 21 to 30. I believe that's where we were at last time. I think I'm 31 to 38 now. Yeah, 31 to 38. Cool. Well, we have a absolute variety of commentaries we can reference here. Lots of options. I almost want to... Let's go to ancient literature. I don't use this one very often, guys. And what this does is it grabs from the apostolic fathers, the church fathers. It grabs where they utilize these verses. So if Logos has gone in and cited, essentially, that, hey, Clement is referring to these verses, they will reference them in this section of his epistle or his letter, and then it will pop up in this, this guide, right? This little subsection of the guide. So recommended to check here once in a while, and it can be pretty cool to look at where the early church fathers are referencing these sorts of things. If you want a bit of a cheat code hack to this sort of thing, rather than using the ancient literature section, you can also use commentaries that kind of summarize the ancient literature. So you have the Ancient Christian Commentary on the Scriptures, right? You could use that one. Or, any number, really, of study Bibles that, reference these things, etc. So there are a few ways you can get this information. Here's ACCS, here's RCS, right? So those are certainly options. But it can also be fun to add fontes, go to the sources, right? And see what they say in particular. So let's only look at quotations at this point. So allusions are where they might be referencing it, but they're not sure. And then topical just means they're covering the same topic, again, as identified by Logos. Let's go to the quotations and just see a handful of the quotations that are referenced here. So this one's from Augustine. And again, we're looking for John 13, 31 to 38, right? And that's one thing about this section. I don't know if I've gotten good at this yet. They usually go to like the whole sermon. I remember in the past, like having to read multiple paragraphs to get the reference. I think if you do this little hack here, yeah, I think this is it. If you look up in your books and you do like a Bible reference one, it should correct me if my syntax isn't correct. Switch to precise search. That's actually what we want. And if you have sympathetic highlighting on, what it will do is if you open up a resource, it will now sympathetically highlight that particular quote, right? So I've got a precise search here on my full library. looking for references to John 13, 31 to 38. If you got a smaller library, this can actually be handy too, to just find any quotes whatsoever. But obviously we're going to get way too many. But my hope is that when I open these individual sections out of our ancient literature section, that we're going to get the sympathetic highlighting so I can travel immediately to the passage or the sentence where the Father is highlighting that verse. So that's why we're doing this. This is taking a lot longer than it typically does, but we'll give it a little time. Wow, look. So we have Augustine and 3 layers of Augustine. Okay, 4. Yeah. So all of these are Augustine. So John, not unfamiliar to him. Look at this. That's part of why it took so long. 152,000 results in 1357 resources. So, and again, it's looking everywhere that reference to these verses happens. So that's the hit we're looking for. But look, 4 sections of Augustine. We've got Hilary de Poitiers. We've got Ambrose, Cyril of Jerusalem, Chrysostom, Clement of Alexandria, Origen. This one I don't know. Apostolic Constitutions, interesting. Basil, I believe, was Caesarea. Here's some conferences. I didn't know about that one, but it's a collation. Eusebius, Cyril of Alexandria, not to be confused with Clement of Alexandria. And then we have, let's see, Leo. These ones I don't know as much. Oh, interesting. These sermons from Augustine are set out separately, and it puts them as a Benedictine. So that's interesting. Jerome, and then Bernard of Clairvaux. So you can see these are all the ones that quote these verses. Notice here a lot more even allude to the section. And then be interesting to check out the sectarian material of the Dead Sea Scrolls and look at the verse here. Revealed things concerning the regulated times of their stipulations in order to love all the sons of light, each one. So that's the love piece. So now that we got this, let's see if this works the way I thought it would. Let's bring up Augustine. And as long as we have, and again, I'm still getting used, I believe it's in the view section. As long as we have the highlighting on, notes and highlighting. It's under notes. Open notes tool. That's not what we want. Notes filter. No, that's not what we want either. I'll find it, guys. Give me a second here. Might be formatting. Yes, we're getting closer. Emphasize current references and popular highlights. So current references, I would think it would grab any of these verses because I'm searching the verses, right? And then, of course, having these visual filters on can be pretty handy. So I think I've got it set up the way I want. Now let's see if it jumps out at us. And if it doesn't, we also want to look at the footnotes. So lots of footnotes here. And you can see that it doesn't look like it's embedded in the letter. And we have 93.13 here. So, I mean, if you read this much and you still didn't find it, you're not gonna. So let's go back to the start, and then let's look at the hyperlinks to footnotes, right? So here's footnote 2, and you can see there's the references. So boom, right there. Boom, right there. And so I believe there's a way to jump footnote to footnote. There's our verse, John 13:16. Right? Oh, no, that's verse 16, so we actually have to go further. Let's try. This is a good exercise to do sometimes, guys. Okay, look, this is how you jump. So this jumps section to section. We're here. Change it from article to reference. And it should, no, reference is hitting up each individual letter. So that's if you want to jump on a larger basis. Filter highlight. That probably goes based upon your own highlights, and then notes. So that's still not getting us what we want. I wonder if, I think it highlights the hyperlinked footnote if you have this set up correctly. There's several ways you could do this, guys. I could change this to not your books, but instead all open books, and it would only look in these ones, and the search would go faster, and it would grab exactly where it's referenced in this book. So you could do that. But again, I'm having fun playing around with this, trying to remember exactly how to get it to highlight. I thought that it would highlight the cross-reference if it was embedded in the end notes or the footnotes or whatever. But I might be wrong. Might be wrong. And someone might make the point, Tanner, if you just read it, would you not have found it by now? Maybe. The answer is maybe, right? So anyway. Cal Magic says, how familiar or receptive is your congregation to the founding fathers? Yeah, they're actually pretty receptive. I would not say they're familiar. By definition, Baptists don't deal with the early church fathers very much, but I would say in general, they're pretty receptive. And then now you make me think, you said founding fathers, maybe you mean the founding fathers of America. And I would say in general, my congregation is pretty receptive to them as well, right? My congregation tends to be kind of a more traditional, Baptistic, type of approach. So they're open to both of those things. If I referenced the early church fathers, they would just need some context and like why this early church father matters to them. And then if I reference the founding fathers, I think they would be open to them pretty readily. Now, here's something interesting to see. John 13 is quoted throughout. We've hit 2 references to John 13 now in the footnotes, right? So that's pretty significant already. And we haven't hit the reference of our particular pericope, but getting 2 references, period, is actually pretty significant because what it demonstrates is that Augustine had John 13 on the mind when he wrote this, for whatever reason. Maybe he knew the section well, maybe he had just read it, but obviously it's pretty salient to him if he's quoting it extensively in a single letter here, right? So I'm not seeing the detail. Man, extensive footnotes here. This just goes to show the embarrassment of riches we have, guys. You could read this whole, as your only prep, you could read the Bible verses, and then you could read like this one letter 93 from Augustine and probably prepare a pretty good sermon, right? Just such an embarrassment of riches that we have in our day and age, which is pretty crazy. Honorius, Acadius. There's more Proverbs. He's been quoting Proverbs quite a bit in this section too. So there's some more John. And again, there's lots of ways you could do this. I could, even though I didn't get it on the article piece here, you could get it to where you could jump footnote to footnote. I know that's possible, even with something as simple as searching by number and then just, 51, 52, 53, 54, that type of thing. You could jump through. So there's a lot of ways to mess with it, and I like that about Logos. There's more than one way to skin a cat in Logos. If you find one way is more intuitive to you than another, and then just use that way. That's fine. You don't always have to use the most efficient way or the, the recommended way, right? Do what works for you. Okay, I am not seeing it, and I'm down to 71 here. So now I'm going to take this approach of, rather than going to every single one, let's scroll and just look for the highlight. We stopped at 75. Let's just look and see if any of these footnotes is highlighted. I would think it would be with the sympathetic highlighting on, because you could see I could check these hundreds and hundreds and still not find it. This is a long letter, guys. And this is part of my point. Okay, so that ends the letter. This is part of my point about utilizing the this section, the ancient literature section, is it usually gives you the whole thing. Now, one thing I didn't do here is it says 9313. So let's try one more thing, and that is to turn on, in the formatting, let's try to turn on the chapter and verse numbers, right? So sometimes these are turned off for ease of reading. So page numbers wouldn't be it, but it's similar to that. But instead, there are some early church fathers that are essentially versified, if you will, kind of similar to how the Bible has chapter and verse. And so let's see if they have that for Augustine here. And if they do, then let's turn that on and see, because you can see here in the passage guide, it says Augustine, Epistle 93, Section 1, Section 3, right? And then it says Section 108. So it's clear that, this is letter 108. Very, very interesting. It's clear to me, though, that these references, we're wanting to drill down a little bit further than we currently have with just this, right? And now it's got me wondering. You see, this one takes you to letter 93, whereas this takes you to letter 108, which I think is wrong. This should be EP 93. Now I'm curious, guys. Because you can see, like, this point here. Maybe that's correct. Maybe it's correct, all of 108, without drilling down to the 1-3. Let's look. Sorry, guys, I'm very ADD at the moment. I can tell I'm jumping around to all sorts of stuff. Let's look in particular for the to see if it's versified at all. We already saw the page view. And I'm not seeing it, guys. Also, you can do like this inline search within the resource itself. Like if we did this, you can often do this search. No results. Look at that, guys. So that's, again, looking for this particular. Let's use the old now, guys. Now I'm all let's use the old nomenclature, the old syntax. Something like this. Because it'll correct you often. Right here. And let's see if this syntax is correct. Because it might just be a different syntax. Ha ha ha, found it. But we only found it in 108. So there's a difference here on Bible : John 13, 31 to 38. And again, I'm still getting used to the newer syntax because it used to be you search for this thing in a different way. So now let's do this. Let's see how many hits we get. Because this is a completely different syntax for the search. Look at that. So here, Bible : John 13, 31 to 38 gives you 152,000 results and 1,300 resources. Bible : and then in parentheses, John 13, 31 to 38 gives you 42,000 results in 7,971 resources. So less results, more resources. That's interesting. Here, I think it's trying to capture.
Your life is not
come on.
in your hands.
Go.
Your life is in the hands of God.
Let's go.
BJH13 just resubbed for 59 months. Are you still a
59?
Christian when you have neither hair nor glasses?
I'm not sure. I don't know if you can be. Yeah, it's a really good question. Good to see you, BJH. How are you? It's been a minute. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for swinging by. 59 months. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Appreciate you. Fantastic. Let's see what he says. I'm glad you're going through this exercise. I would have given up way too quick. And see, I think that can be valuable because it teaches you how the software works, right? And so, like, just looking at this, we got less hits, but we got more articles and more resources. What this tells me is that this is searching a much broader range than this one to get many more hits. Or you know what this one's doing? It's double or triple counting. That's what it's actually doing. It probably counts every time one of those resources shows up in the section, right? So you can see that it's double or triple counting with the blue and the red being highlighted here. Blue and red, okay? So it's double, triple counting a lot of hits here. Whereas this one under the precise search, it's only single counting them, and it's probably single counting and focusing in on resources that take any verse from this range, and then it just single counts it. So you're getting more hits because it's taking any verse from the range rather than looking for the whole range together, and it is giving you less results out of more resources because of it, right? So this is probably the better search that you're looking for. Now let's go through the exact same exercise So we put this one in here, and we got the hit in 108 on verse 77. Now I'm super curious. Let's go back here, and let's scroll through 93 yet again. Let's turn off the inline search. Okay, it's off. And let's look for a highlighted endnote. BJH says, shorter work today, so coming on to Twitch in the afternoon doesn't feel exhausting. Hey, no problem. Thanks for swinging by. Guess what I found recently, BJH? I found a certain fountain pen that I was gifted from the esteemed Wordsworth and Black. And rather than utilizing the inserts, I actually took a bottle of ink that I had, and I inked it using the universal ink system that was included with it. So my Wordsworth and Black pen currently has Iroshizuku Takasumi in it. And I'm going to be honest, when I got the Takasumi, I was like, oh, what a mistake. It's just black. It's boring. I love this ink. The blacks are very deep and rich and very enjoyable. And so that is what's currently in the pen you gifted me, good sir. I love Pilot Iroshizuku ink sets. Absolutely. They're some of my favorites. So yeah. And I also, you probably didn't know this, I currently have me a Sailor 1911 with the, let's see, 21 karat gold nib. And it is inked with Yamabudo, which is like a deep, deep, rich purple, right? So I've got the Takasumi black in my Wordsworth and Black. And then I've got the Yamabudo. Again, deep purple, rich, beautiful ink. And that one's in my Sailor 1911. My main pen is still Sailor 1911L. I love that one. Yeah, this one is extra fine, which is a very, very narrow nib, but I enjoy it. And then, of course, the Wordsworth and Black is quite thick. So just wanted you to know your gift is being used all these years later. Guys, BJH gifted me my first fountain pen, and I'm using it all these years later. When the Yamabudo runs out, Konpeki is going in next. This reminds me of those like bright blues that you often get out of like old Bic pens or things like that. So anyway, that's going next in the Sailor once the Yamabudo is out. So there you go, BJ. Thanks for swinging by. All of mine are medium. I have Parker Penman Emerald in my Sailor. I have Diamond Jack Frost in my Franklin Christoph pen, and I have Sailor Kiwaguro for my Black in a Waterman Exception. That's awesome. Take notes constantly with them. Yeah, the Sailor never leaves my side. And I leave my Wordsworth in my bag. So I use that one when I want a little more ink, right? It really throws down ink, that Wordsworth in Black. This one is very, very narrow. So it's very thin lines on this one, which I enjoy most of the time. Cool. Well, thanks for swinging by. It's good to see you. I love the Augustin stuff. Yeah. No, I'm enjoying them. Okay. So we're scrolling through here. And again, it doesn't look like we're getting that. Now we saw on 108 that it actually popped when we did the inline search. So let's scroll through 108. And guys, we're looking for a highlighted end note here. Let's see if it does it. It should do it, which is, again, why the sympathetic highlighting is so valuable. So let's scroll. Boom. Do you see it? That's what you're looking for, that orange right there. John 13:35. Ding, 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 ding. Now, let's try another thing. Let's close these searches. Make sure we have this one saved. And if we close the search, look, we lose that sympathetic highlighting. you would miss it and you'd be going through trying to hover over every single one. So valuable to have the search tab open with a precise search on all your books with your verses in it, because you're going to get that sympathetic highlighting. Watch, after it finishes the search, 77 highlights. Boom. Very good. BJ, there are so many hidden gems in his letters and works. I haven't been using my Logos as much for anything but reading lately. I hear you. And hey, it's a good tool to just read in. I love the fact that you can open the Logos app in your phone and you can do your highlights there. I could be standing in line, just open the app real quick and read, a couple pages out of a book I'm in, right? And then boom, I'm off to the races. So I really enjoy that. I'm going to heat the tea up. It got a little lukewarm. I'll be right back. BJ, I heard the Pope is not doing well. I don't keep up with the news that much, but I heard the Pope is not doing well. Is there any updates to that? BJ says, new book coming out, Beyond the Salvation Wars by Matthew W. Bates. Hits March 11th. I'm pretty excited. I pre-ordered in Logos. That sounds like an amazing book. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and the justification by faith alone issue, well, I forget if it's called the material cause of the Reformation or the whatever cause. There are two causes, right? And one of them sola scriptura and one of them sola fide. To get in such a big fight over those things, I think we missed the mark a little bit. I will say I continue to have my issues with Roman Catholicism, but they have very little to do with justification. Those aren't my primary problems. So, anyway. Yeah, that sounds like it'd be a very cool book. I'm not super familiar with Matthew Bates, but his name sounds familiar. All right, let's see. This is a section where Augustine looks like he's just quoting a lot of verses. So let's start up here at the top of the paragraph. If that is the case, I welcome your defense. That will be your defense if it is true, and it will be overthrown by the truth if it is not that. I repeat, I welcome your defense, but you see it is also mine. Why then do we not strive together to be grain in the unity of the Lord's threshing floor? Why do we not hold together? Why do we not together bear with the chaff? I ask you why not. For what reason, what benefit, what advantage? Tell me. Unity is shunned, and the peoples, ransomed by the blood of the one lamb, are roused against each other by conflicting aims. And the sheep that belong to the father of the family are divided among us as if they were ours. How prescient, BJ, that you would bring that topic up. Yet he said of the servant, feed my sheep, not feed your sheep. And it is said of them that there may be one fold and one shepherd. He cries out in the gospel, by this all men shall know that you are my disciples if you have true love for one another, and suffer both to grow until the harvest, lest perhaps, gathering up the cockle, you root up the wheat also together with it. Unity is shunned so that the husband goes this way and the wife that. Oh, this is like a really good section. He's fired up. And I don't know who he's talking to here, right? But, to have an early church father where often there were doctrinal disputes and debates that split people up, to have him be fighting so strongly for unity in the church, I think is awesome, right? Hold to unity with me because I am your husband. And she answers, I stay where my father is. The two on one marriage couch divide Christ, whom we would despise if we were to divide the couch. Unity is shunned, and as a result, relatives and fellow citizens, friends and guests, and all who are mutually joined in some human relationship, but Christians all, agree together in sharing banquets, in giving and receiving in marriage, in buying and selling, in contracts and covenants, in salutations and concessions, in conferences, in their interests and their transactions, and they disagree on the altar of God. Those who ought there to make an end of their disagreement, however great and from whatever source derived, and who should obey the Lord's command to go first and be reconciled with their brothers, and then offer their gift at the altar, are in agreement everywhere else, but they are at variance. Very interesting. Very cool. Cal Magic says, Bates wrote, salvation by allegiance alone is where I think you hear of him. Ah, got you. Very nice. Yeah, let me see here. Was he an editor on like a Yale? No, that's the one I have of him. Yeah, there you go. I love the Yale handbooks. Maybe not Yale. No, they're not the Yale handbooks. What are they? The Oxford handbooks. And I believe there was a Matthew. Obviously, it's not Bates, but there was a Matthew that I knew from the Oxford handbooks, I think. Might be mixing up with him. Matthew Levering. I was thinking of Matthew Levering. Yeah, very good. Cool. Well, that sounds like a great book. Looking forward to it. So, here's what I will put. Augustine, letter 108. Emphasizing unity. Ooh, guys, here is a great use for the summarize tool. I don't want to read all of letter 108. So instead, what I'm going to do is I am going to have the AI summarize it for me. And ideally, here's my hope, is that the AI will identify a particular theme that he's talking about when he's focusing on the when he's focusing here in letter 108 on unity, right? Like, what issue is he discussing? What key issue is in his mind? Summarize. 108. Boom. Let's check it out, y'all. In a letter to Macrobius, Augustine addresses the issue of rebaptism and the division within the church, particularly concerning the Donatist sect. He argues against the practice of rebaptizing individuals who are already baptized in the Christian faith.
I don't know why you're clapping. I'm talking about you.
Thanks for the follow. Much love to you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the follow. Thanks for swinging by. He argues against the practice of rebaptizing individuals who are already baptized in the Christian faith, emphasizing that such actions violate the sacrament. Augustine points out that if someone baptized in the Donatist communion returns, they should not be rebaptized, but rather corrected in their misunderstanding. He criticizes Macrobius for adhering to the traditions of his predecessors rather than seeking the truth of the church, which he believes should unite all Christians. Augustine highlights the inconsistency in the Donatist stance, noting that they accepted baptisms from those they deemed sinful while condemning others for similar actions. He refers to the Council of Bagae, which condemned Maximian and his followers, but later accepted those who had been part of that schism back into the church without rebaptism. Augustine argues that unity is essential for the church. Here we go, right? And that Christians should bear with one another's faults rather than separate over them. He invokes the teachings of Cyprian, who advocated for maintaining unity despite the presence of sin within the church. Ultimately, Augustine calls for reconciliation and unity among Christians, urging Macrobius to recognize the importance of love and charity in overcoming divisions rather than allowing the presence of sin to drive a wedge between believers. Look at this. Very nice. Good summary of 108. And that's all we need is the summary. Don't get me wrong. Great idea to go in detail into the letter, right? Great idea to read the whole thing. But barring that opportunity, what a cool tool to be able to summarize 108 and then read the paragraph where he talks specifically about our verse. Like, that's a huge use, right? Huge use. Mr. Presby, yes, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. And what a fantastic, you have theologian emotes just like we do. That's an R.C. Sproul emote. That's cool. A fellow Logos user. Much love, Mr. Presby. Yeah, welcome to the channel. How long you been streaming? Cal Magic says, Oxford, very short introductions is a fantastic series, almost 500 books in the series. That's really cool, Cal Magic. Nice. BJH, on baptism is such an amazing work by Augustine on this topic. Got you. BJ, man, he's already in here exercising his moderator powers. Look at him. Look at him crushing fools. Here's some of my emotes. Those are cool. You got Calvin, Luther, the Calvin with the sunglasses, right? Thug Calvin. Yeah, nice. These are great. Thanks for sharing, Mr. Presby. How long you been streaming for? All right, so we got that one. Let's go back into ancient literature now. Oh, did I close? Oh, it's no bother to bring it back up. But it looks like I closed the Passage guide. All right, rerunning. Ancient literature section. And now let's go to Contra Faustum. Ah, this one I only have in an earlier version, Nicene and post-Nicene Fathers, right? And here we go. Number 9. So, like, already we can see he's quoted this twice, right? So one thing we can say about Augustine is Augustine loved to quote this passage, and he focused on unity when he did so, right? Presby, great to find you. Just stream on and off for fun, mostly on X. Nice. I've never streamed on X. Is it easy to restream to X through, like, Restream or a tool like that? I'd never tried. Maybe I should make an X account. Hello, Boyhood Dream. Good to see you. Thanks for swinging by. I'm going well. How are you? I do not ask for those only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they all may be one, just as you and just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you've given me, you've given to them, that they may be even one as we are. So BJ has given us cross-reference that's to come later on here in John, which is obviously a very powerful section. Presby, sorry I do not stream on there, but I meant I am mostly active on X. I've got you. Very cool. Yeah, I just know of some people who, like, stream on multiple platforms, including X. Like, they'll stream to YouTube while they have an X space stream open as well, right? Streaming there is pretty easy and seems to be a good platform. Nice. I may have to create an X account if it's that simple and just start streaming to it. Boyhood Dream, just living the dream. Glad to finally catch a stream. What's the latest with you? Oh, I'm doing good. We're doing same old, right? I got a lot going on in terms of my 2 jobs and then my family. We did just recently vote in plurality of elders as a constitutional amendment at my church. And so I'm hoping here in the first quarter, second quarter of this year to get some elders installed so that they can actually share the load a little bit, bear some of the burden of the regular preaching and teaching. And then, of course, ramp up our shepherding so that we kind of have a greater activity and influence in other people's lives. So that's the idea, to really shepherd the sheep better. So I'm eager for that, to kind of build out the team. Yeah. Okay, well, let's see what he says here. The Lord has vouchsafed both to manifest and to impart this love by sending the Holy Spirit to his believing people. So it is said of the same apostle, the love of God is shed abroad in our heart by the Holy Ghost, which is given to us. And the Lord himself says, by this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love for one another. The law then is fulfilled both by the observance of its precepts and the accomplishment of its prophecies. So, like, already I can say, yeah, this verse was a favorite, right, of Augustine. He liked to quote it a lot, right? John 13:35, a favorite of Augustine's. And when you do a little research like this, even if you don't quote him specifically, you can drop little hints like that, right? That I call them fun facts. People really love that. They love and they enjoy to hear things like that, like just little tidbits of information. BJH, congratulations. I know you pushed for the elder thing for a long time. Yeah, it's taken a while, but we finally moved in that direction. Cal Magic PT implementing a multi-level marketing plan for his community. That's not the goal, but if you think you're doing something valuable, you want to get the message out, right? You want to get the word out. That's really funny, though. I appreciate you, Cal Magic. Cal Magic, I promise nobody supports Pastor Tanner more than you do. Okay, so much love to you. Over the years, you've been so generous with us, and we really appreciate it. Okay, let's go to a couple more, maybe from Augustine. It's really nice to do the search here and get the sympathetic highlighting. Here we go, another one. This love by which the righteousness of the law can be filled. So he keeps talking about the law and the fulfilling of the law, and he keeps mentioning this love one another, right? So that's good. Looks to me like Augustine was fond of quoting many passages or verses in a row, right? Which is probably why Protestants like him so much, because he feeds into their sola scriptura doctrine position very nicely. But as he, with imperfect insight into the mystery, was careful to preserve charity with all courage and humility and faith, he deserved to come to the crown of martyrdom, so that if any cloud had crept over the clearness of his intellect from the infirmity as man, might be dispelled by the glorious brightness of his blood. For it was not in vain that our Lord Jesus Christ, when he declared himself to be the vine, and his disciples, as it were the branches in the vine, gave command to those which bear no fruit should be cut off, and removed from the vine as useless branches. But what is really fruit, save that new offspring, of which he further says, a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another. This is that very charity, without which the rest profiteth nothing. The apostle also says, right? Good. Well, we got our fill of Augustine. Let's try someone else. Presby, thoughts on referencing the original languages in sermons? I do it. In fact, this last Sunday, I put up multiple Bible word studies that I got from the passage. So I do it. I used to flip-flop on this, right? So generally, guys, if you're not aware, some people think that it's a bad form to reference the original languages in sermons. There are two approaches to this, right? One is here's the Bible word studies. I didn't use this word, but these are what the Bible word studies look like, and sometimes I'll cut them out and put slides of them in my presentations and discuss them. There are generally two approaches. One approach is to say, never reference the original languages. It looks try-hard, like you are trying to make yourself look smarter than you actually are, because I know the original languages. And then not only that, it sends an implicit message to the congregation that, look, you can really only understand the Bible if you know the original languages. So, even if you never say that, it kind of sends that implicit message that, only really smart people who understand original languages like me, we're the only ones who can really understand the Bible, and you don't want to send that implicit message. So referencing the original languages from that perspective is verboten. You don't want to do it, and you might mention it in passing, but rarely would you deep dive it. And then there is another side of the spectrum, which essentially says people need to be aware of the original languages. They need to understand these differences. You need to bring these to light to your people. And it's very important to bring up the original languages, right? And so I've gone back and forth on it. I honestly think oftentimes this is the making of a mountain out of a molehill. It really comes down to the character of the preacher, right? If he is insecure and wants to make himself look smarter, he's going to do that irrespective of whether or not he's referencing the original languages, right? Or whatever pathologies he may have. So I actually think we make a mountain out of a molehill with this one. And in general, I don't hesitate to reference the original languages. I bring them up from time to time, and I think people appreciate it, right? What congregant of a standard Protestant church doesn't know the word agape? They know it, right? Whether they learned it in a Bible study from a sermon or whatever, it doesn't hurt that, Christians know the Greek word for love, right? Like, that doesn't hurt at all. So I don't hesitate to reference them. Good question, though. Yeah, there you go. There's another one. Pistis, right? So let's see. BJ says, I think the only group he's not overly popular with are the Orthodox. You're talking about Augustine. And I could understand that because Augustine can get very left hemisphere with things, and the Orthodox are much more right hemispheric. Catholics quote him constantly as well. Feels like most of Aquinas is just restating Augustine. There you go. Presby says, I've heard both sides, just curious. I do think it depends on the context/audience and manner in which it is used. Yeah, I agree with all that as well. Yep. But that's my perspective. It can be really helpful sometimes, especially when the words don't have exact English meaning. Pistis, for example. Yeah, there you go. I'll show you, though. Like, here, let's watch me from yesterday. And I'll just show you where I reference them and how I do it. So I actually did a little bit of a deep dive into the original languages in this one. So let's see what I say. Am I on double speed? No, single speed. Engage with people in such a way that it doesn't kill you. Okay? That's why I entitled the sermon, Betrayed But Still Alive. All right? I don't want you to make yourself so vulnerable that if you get betrayed, it will result in your death. But I do want you to make yourself vulnerable enough that if you get betrayed, it's not going to destroy you entirely. Okay? And that's what we are going to wrestle with this morning. So, a question. Why should we get ourselves into situations where we can be betrayed? I'm going to make that case this morning. Why should we get ourselves into situations where we can be betrayed? Well, in order to answer this, I think we need to answer the simple question, what is betrayal? Okay? Betrayal is actually a very interesting concept or idea in the Bible. There are several words in the Bible that talk around the topic of betrayal. But in Greek and Hebrew, it's hard to find one that explicitly means what we mean when we use our English word, betrayal or betrayed. Okay? So let's look at a few of the biblical examples. All right? Get some help from the Dictionary of Biblical Imagery here. It's a fantastic little Bible dictionary. If you could only have one or two Bible dictionaries, this should be high on your list. It's really good, and it focuses in on a lot of the Bible themes. And on the topic of betrayal, it brings up this. It says, the chief Old Testament image of betrayal is wrongful exposure of what should remain hidden. This is the Hebrew word galah. Okay? The Hebrew word galah. Wrongful exposure of what should remain hidden. Here is an example of this word. Okay? It's used 186 times in the Old Testament, scattered throughout all these different books. And all of these little pieces of this little pie chart, circle chart, whatever you want to call this, those are verses where the word is translated in a slightly different way. So what this should show you is this is a very complex word, okay? Because when it comes over into English, it gets translated in many different ways, all right? Often it's translated, galah is often translated uncovered, uncovering. Sometimes it's translated as exile, right? To exile somebody and put them out or away. Sometimes it's translated as revealed or revealing, to open or open oneself or be carried away, captivity, disclose, carry, etc. These are some of the ideas. You can see the very, very, very varied word. V-E-R-Y-V-A-R-I-E-D. Very varied word. Okay, so that's galah, right? 186 times in the Old Testament. Let's just look at some verses that use this as an example. Okay, Proverbs 20:19. This is a sense in which the word is used. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, therefore do not associate with a simple babbler. This reveals secrets piece. That's the uncovering, making known, right? It's a secret, something that probably should not be revealed, and yet it's being revealed or uncovered. It's being made known, all right? Galah. Or let's look at Amos 3:7. For the Lord God does nothing without revealing his secret to his servants, the prophets. Notice here it's used in a positive sense, not necessarily always negative, right? Here God reveals his secrets to his prophets, galah, right? He reveals his secrets to his prophets. So sometimes it can be used in a positive sense. It doesn't always just mean that kind of negative connotation that you and I think of when we think of betrayed. Here's a sense in which it's used actually often in the Bible, especially in the Pentateuch. Here in Leviticus, if you've ever heard that phrase, uncovering the nakedness, right? It's all throughout the Old Testament. That is where it comes from. None of you shall approach anyone of his close relatives to uncover nakedness. I am the Lord. And so this uncover nakedness, it's to reveal something that should not be revealed, right? That is the idea or the implication.
So there you go. There's a sense in which I used it yesterday. And so obviously I think it's okay to use it. I try to use it, as you guys are saying, in an explanatory sense, in a way that is helpful to people, but I don't think it is necessarily bad in and of itself. I've seen it done poorly, right? I've seen it done in a poor way where at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't think they did that very well, and I think that might have turned some people off, but it doesn't mean it has to be that out of necessity, right? The abuse of a thing does not abrogate its proper use. And so I think it can be done appropriately. Hopefully people found that helpful. When we think of the word betray, the Hebrew word that's often associated with this is to uncover the nakedness. Okay. It kind of helps you to connect the pieces, perhaps, right? So anyway, curious your thoughts on that, Mr. Presby, on how I did that. But yeah, that's kind of the approach that I often take. Good question. BJ says, my favorite argument about people overusing the Greek was a pastor showing how you can take the word butterfly, break it down to its parts, and come up with a fly that likes butter, rather than the actual meaning as it was used. And some inexperienced youth pastor may be guilty of this in the past. That's absolutely the case. And you get into this trap when you dig into etymology too much, when you look at where the words themselves or originally came from and their individual components. D.A. Carson actually calls this out in his book on exegetical fallacies. This is a really good little book that everyone should probably read. And one of the sections he talks about is grammatical fallacies.
and various tenses and moods. It wasn't that. It might be, no, it was word study fallacies. Right here. Common fallacies and semantics. There you go. The root fallacy. That's what you're getting at with this one, BJ. One of the most enduring errors, the root fallacy, presupposes that every word actually has a meaning bound up with its shape or its components. In this view, meaning is determined by etymology, that is, by root or roots of a word. So you look at the root of that word, butter. You look at the root of the other word, fly, a fly that likes butter, right? And, you know, D.A. Carson dismantles this. He actually goes in depth into one of the common things that people do, agape, phileo, right? He pulls up those words for love, agape, phileo, etc., eros, and a lot of people like talk about this is God's sacrificial love, whereas this one is, you know, sexual love, whereas this one is brotherly love, and that somehow they have these independent meanings. And what he points out is they have substantial overlap in terms of their semantic domain, right? And a lot of people don't recognize that semantic domain overlap, right? So he brings this out very explicitly in exegetical fallacies. And word study fallacies are very common because you'll often find somebody who doesn't know anything from anything. And what did they do? They got themselves a word study dictionary like Vine's, right? You get yourself Vine's, Vine's complete expository dictionary of Old Testament, New Testament words, right? And you get somebody gets one of these, and they utilize their Strong's Concordance to look up a word, and then they find this word in their Strong's Concordance, and they look it up, and then they read this, whatever the definition is here in Vine's, as its literal definition. And they'll be like, well, the word doesn't mean how they translated it here in the ESV. Instead, it means this. And so, you know, somebody who has no knowledge of original languages can commit word study fallacies all over the place by utilizing their, you know, Vine's expository dictionary of Old and New Testament words, right? Used carefully and, you know, deliberately, these can be great tools and resources. Used carelessly, these can be very damaging for people in understanding the Bible. So anyway, great question. And it's a good discussion. That's something that a lot of people really don't know about, right? All right. BJ says, taking this back to Augustine, his Greek was terrible and his Hebrew non-existent. He relied on the Latin translation of his day. New Testament writers also often, though not exclusively, used varied versions of the Septuagint when they quoted the Old Testament. I mean, you see this time and time again, BJ, when you see the New Testament translations of particular Old Testament references. They almost never match the Masoretic text, right? They almost always match the Septuagint instead. And so, you know, much to the chagrin of, I don't know, our Jewish viewers, oftentimes the Septuagint is what is referenced. And I don't believe at all that that means that what the New Testament authors are quoting is somehow corrupted or anything like that. Yeah, so that's very common, BJ. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, let's try Hilary. Hilary of Poitiers, and his De Trinitate or whatever is one of his most well-known works on the Trinity. So let's see. He quotes it right here in verse 56. Not 56, but the, not verse, but, you know, the footnote. These words of the Lord are not new, nor are they now mentioned for the very first time in the teachings of the gospel. And he bore testimony to this very fact, the mystery of God the Father, who is to glorify the Son with himself in that most sublime joy of his own hope. When, after Judas had gone forth to the betrayal, he expressed his happiness at the consummation of the plan of salvation in these words, now is the Son of Man glorified, blah, 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 blah. Why are our souls weighed down by a body made of dust? Our souls polluted and stained with the foul consciousness of sin, puffed up with pride to such an extent that we pass judgment on the confession of God about himself? How can we, who regard ourselves as judges of the heavenly nature, rebel against God with our impious and slanderous debates? The Lord expressed the faith of the gospel in words as simple as possible and adapted them to our understanding insofar as the weakness of our nature could grasp them. Yet he did not say anything that was unbecoming of the majesty of his nature. It was very nice. Obviously a different emphasis than Augustine, right? Same verses being referenced. Well, at least for our pericope, but completely different sense, you know. And his focus is on the fact that our souls stained with sin don't necessarily perceive of these things properly and in the right sense, right? So Hilary De Trinitate, and I don't know if that's exactly how to spell it. I don't really care. I know what I'm talking about, which is all that matters in my notes, right? Okay, cool. Good. That was good. Let's look for another one. Ambrose looks like he quotes it a couple times. Funeral orations. Peter, also though filled with loyal devotion, but not yet fully conscious of our weakness, has rashly assured the Lord, I will lay down my life for thee. Before the cock crowed thrice, his presumption was put to the test. Let Peter's trial be salutary lesson for us, that we may learn not to disregard the weakness of the flesh. So here again is the flesh and how the flesh brings us down. Lest by doing so we should be tempted. If Peter was tempted, who should presume or who should assert that he cannot be also? And unquestionably, so this is a really good one. And now that we have seen from the same section, two different focus areas, now I am centering in on my proposition, which is something about the weakness of the flesh. Because we see the weakness of the flesh in that we cannot follow him. We'll have to follow afterwards. In that God is glorified through Jesus, and we can't have that glory. In that it's difficult to love one another, right? And that's how we know the difference. And in the fact that Peter betrays Jesus, right? So I think this is our overarching theme. It's the weakness of the flesh. The flesh drags us down, and what we see is the weakness of the flesh is represented from several different directions. So I think Ambrose hits the nail on the head here, and this should be the direction we go, because Hilary points to the very same thing, just from a different section, right? BJH, clearly a popular passage with the giants of the fathers. Amen to that. I'll put that down right here. Boom. Boom, boom. Love to see it. So, now the weakness of the flesh. How are we going to flesh this out? Well, we've got all these sections that help us to do that. So, let's go ahead and try and come up with our proposition now. We're over an hour. I can go a little bit longer, guys, and then I'm going to have to go soon. But let's flesh out our proposition here. Something like, because the flesh is weak, we should... No, I'm not going to go to the proposition yet, but I'm just going to put an idea here. Because the flesh is weak, we are unable to follow Jesus in glory, love one another, and resist the temptation of self-preservation, which is really what Peter falls victim to. Because the flesh is weak, we're unable to follow Jesus in glory, love one another, and resist the temptation of self-preservation. Therefore, we must seek to transcend the flesh so that we may follow Jesus in glory afterward. Love one another, and deny the temptation of self-preservation. And I want to quote here, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, which is a very common passage. Duplicate, boom, Bible, spirit willing, flesh weak. I believe it's Paul. Nope, it's Jesus. Matthew 14:38. Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Fantastic, because this is coming up in the garden, right? Is this passage in John? It isn't. Very interesting. So Mark 14:38 and Matthew 26:41. So what we'll do is we will just, you can come down here to this actually takes the verse itself, and you can just copy the stylized verse, and then we'll throw this in cross references. Boom. And boom. Spirit is willing, flesh is weak. That's what we're talking about here. And this gets discussed before Jesus gets into Gethsemane, right? BJ says, I wonder with all the new Logos tools, is there a way to search what topics and passages were popular with the fathers, at least the big ones like Augustine, Chrysostom, Jerome, Ambrose, etc.? Probably, BJ. One of the cheap and easy ways that I've been doing things like that is I've just been using the Smart Search and relying on the AI. And it's interesting that in the AI space, I kind of wonder how bound to let's just put your query right in there. I kind of wonder how bound to a particular AI Logos is. But, you know, these can be pretty handy, the Smart Search. And I just put your whole query in there. Obviously, if you were looking for better results, you should probably drill down. But one of the benefits of AI is that is the LLM portion of it, learning language model, where it actually, you can just put a question in there, right? So the church fathers, particularly influential like Augustine, Chrysostom, Jerome, and Ambrose, focused on various topics and passages in their writings and teachings. These fathers were known for their substantial orthodoxy, holiness of life, widespread approval in antiquity, devoted considerable attention to biblical exegesis, with Eastern fathers like Chrysostom emphasizing connection between cross and ethics. So I'm not seeing a lot of verses here. Western engaged in biblical translation, wrote extensive theological treatises. I mean, so this is good. You can tell, and this is how you refine your searches, right? It's focusing in on the specific fathers we named, right? That's what it's trying to do. It's trying to kind of give us a broad overview of each of the fathers and emphasize their different teachings. So let's go like this instead. What Bible passages were most popular? So let's just do this. And let's get rid of the big ones. And let's try this one. Yes, LLM. Great. Yes. So now, and this is kind of how you like narrow in on it, right? So let's see what this one does. Right. There you go, BJ. And this is why you need to utilize the AI with, I don't know. You need to have an extensive knowledge of what it's talking about so you can kind of check it. The provided articles do not directly address which Bible passages were most popular with church fathers like Augustine, Chrysostom, Jerome, and Ambrose. Instead, they offer general information about the fathers and their contributions to Christian thought. One article mentions Augustine wrote commentaries on 1 John 2:2 and referenced Romans 13:13-14 in his conversion story. However, the articles do not provide a comprehensive list. So now let's narrow in on what Bible passages were most popular with Augustine. Let's just do that. And this is kind of how you can narrow in and get a better sense of what it's talking about. He showed particular interest in Genesis, the Psalms, Romans, and the Gospel of John. And it's like, okay, how do you know that? Well, they're pulling it from Harper's Bible Dictionary. Jerome and Augustine. Okay, so this is a section in Harper's Bible Dictionary on the Bible and the life of the church. And here, under Jerome and Augustine, the wisdom books, however, were popular because they gave commentators greater freedom to develop distinctive spiritual or moral teachings. Gregory of Nyssa on the Song of Songs, Gregory the Great on Job. For Augustine, however, the commentary was not the primary vehicle for his interpretation of the scriptures. He did write commentaries, several uncompleted, on Romans, a large work on Psalms, a commentary on John, several on Genesis. But his major works are polemical, theological, or spiritual. So you can see that this little statement right here is completely counter to the query we were actually running after, right? It's grabbing something different. And this is why I like how Logos uses AI, because it gives you the sources that it's drawing from. And you're like, actually, AI, you're taking that one a little different. So instead, let's do something like, what Bible verses did Augustine quote the most? You see? And this is how you can narrow in. What Bible verses did Augustine quote the most? And I bet in a commentary somewhere, in a biography on Augustine, there is an author who has like surveyed and written down some of this, right? And so, again, this is kind of how you narrow in on this and you get better answers. Augustine, known for his extensive use of scripture in his writings and sermons, frequently quoted from various parts. While they provided our articles do not specifically list the verses Augustine quoted most often, they offer insights into his approach to scripture. Augustine's sermons were described as scripture-soaked, with over 2/3 of the Bible potentially reconstructed from his sermons alone. Like that's a really good, that's the sort of thing you quote in a sermon, right? Pointing out how extensive Augustine's quoting of Bible verses is. He particularly favored expository preaching, closely following the biblical text. One article mentions Augustine quoted Romans 5:5, emphasizing God's love being poured out to our hearts through the Holy Spirit. And so this is number 2. And like, why is that reference? Is it because he did so frequently, or is it just picking a random one where he quoted some verses, right? Additionally, Augustine referenced Genesis 1:31 and Exodus 3:14 as reflections on creation and God's nature. The articles also cite blah, 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 blah. So this is kind of how you can narrow in. You can get a few ideas here and there. It's obvious to me that the utilizing of AI in a healthy fashion is going to give somebody more material to work with, right? I forget who said it, but it stuck with me. They basically said AI is not going to overtake all of our jobs in the future, but what will overtake our jobs is the employee who knows how to use AI tools will have such an advantage over other employees who don't know how to use AI tools that they will end up winning the lion's share of the jobs. And I think there is probably some truth to that, right? Oh, I brought this way over here. I didn't mean to do that. That's funny. So I think there's probably some truth to that. But yeah, very, very interesting. I love playing around with the AI and Logos, right? Pretty cool. And they give you a good amount. Right here, you used 5% of your monthly AI credits. Now I'm on the Logos Max, but still, I think that's pretty good. Good question. Yeah, good to see you, BJ. I'm glad you swung by and we're chatting. It's very nice to see you. Okay, I like this. Let's come up with a final proposition here then. Spirit is willing, flesh and is weak summarizes this whole section. So maybe I'll just put that. Because the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, we must learn to overcome the flesh and live by the Spirit. Something like that is close to our proper proposition, right? BJ says, yes, very much so. Just like 25 years ago, the pastor that figured out how to use computers for his sermons probably developed a big advantage. Exactly. Whereas nowadays, like, it gives you a huge advantage in ministry if you know how to use a tool like Logos Bible Software, for example. Cal Magic, it's like a person who is skilled in mathematics. There you go. Yep. I think that's a good comparison. So, yeah, there's obviously extensive opportunities, you know. Will you avail yourself of them, right? Okay, guys, I'm probably going to stop there. That's an hour and 15 minutes. We did pretty good. I think we are basically on it right here. I'm glad we look. And how did we get there? The early church fathers. I saw similarities in how they were treating the topic that was brought up surrounding the text, and now it's just going to be about fleshing it out, right? So, you know, the flesh is weak in 3 ways. Can't follow Jesus in glory. Loving one another takes work. And then self-preservation overrides our commitment. Something like that. So these are things that we could dig into in the passage, right? All right, BJ says that was really interesting. Thank you. Yes, thank you. My pleasure. I really enjoyed the stream, guys. I think we made a lot of progress. I have a rough idea of now where I'm going with the text, so I think that's super valuable. I'm going to go ahead and jump off here. I'm going to record real quick a unedited vlog for our Patreon account, and after that, guys, yeah, I've got a few assignments to do. I've got a lesson I'm teaching tomorrow at our church. If you're interested in learning a little bit about Strange New World by Carl Trueman, I'll be teaching on chapter 2 tomorrow. It's this book right here, Strange New World. Like I said, I'll be teaching on chapter 2 tomorrow at our church, so you can follow our church channel and check that out. I believe we start at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But yeah, other than that, I really appreciate hanging out with you guys. I had a lot of fun tonight, and I think we made good progress on the sermon. You guys have a fantastic week, and we'll catch you again real soon. Take care. God bless.